It's just me and you.
Close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and all other non-specified genders everywhere, for we are inclusive. And welcome to another week, but more importantly, welcome to another week of the Blackout Racing League. It's Season 2, as you all know. And it's round 5 and 6 today for Australia and Miami. We are really racking up the air miles, just like the FIA love to do in 2023. We are paying homage to that by killing all jolly fluffy polar bears everywhere. So there you are. Anyway, as you can see, for today, we have a new standby screen. Isn't that fun? I spent about 30.3 seconds in paint.net, and I came up with this. So, you've been bestowed with graphical genius, quite frankly. I've even got the Blackout logo at the bottom right, just to really appease my higher-ups. So there you go. Anyway, let's have a look at where we were familiar, and that is the championship stand... Oh, sorry, not sure how that got there. Yes, the wide championship standings. And who else would it be in first place in the driver's standings other than Thanassi? Because he's been on top for pretty much since my conception, apparently. That's disgusting. But anyway, the point is he's in first, and he's leading by almost 30 points to his next closest competitor, Terziak, who you cannot write off for 1 second, for they have been incredibly consistent. Then it's Milo and Buck57, both on 61 points. Then there's a bit of a gap. Of 24 points to Buck20 and Slam, with Dirk 7th, Stark 8th, etc, etc. You can see a bunch of to be confirms all lined up in 22nd, and also Tom, but he hasn't raced yet, so there you go. In the constructors, though, is where things get interesting. Where Mercedes once inhabited, AlphaTauri have now paid their mortgage and taken first position by quite a sizable margin, I must say. 73 points between them and last year's second place runners, McLaren, although they are joint with Alpine. So there's a bit of work to do. Alpine have proved to have a strong start to this season. So who knows what kind of wizardry they can conjure up as the season goes on. Williams in 4th, Aston Martin in 5th, Mercedes, the once mighty Mercedes, now in 6th. That feels weird to say. Then you have Red Bull 7th, Alfa Romeo 8th, Ferrari 9th, and Haas, where they are familiar, plumb last. So that's good for them. And that really covers all I have to say in terms of an preview. All there is to say is that today, of course, we are off to Australia first, where we will turn everyone's heads upside down, for we are in Australia. And, of course, they're both 35% races, as long-term and possibly even short-term viewers are well aware of. So, don't miss out. Do stay tuned for what will be some incredible Blackout action. We have a 35% race, as I just said. Were you paying attention? Off to Australia first, where I'm sure it will be filled with clean racing and no chaos whatsoever. That was sarcasm, if you couldn't tell. I'm sure there'll be plenty of crashes, and we'll have a great time whilst watching it. So do stay tuned. Race 1 begins soon.
the sun. To dream, believe in strength. Now I'm the only one, only one. I was an ordinary boy until I broke the rules. My
Well, here we are then. Who's going to have their head put in a spin? Or who's going to be the king of the upside down? Here in Australia. Well, that's what we're here to find out. It's qualifying time. It's the Australian Grand Prix. Under the scorching sunlight. And hopefully it won't end for the drivers like it did in Qatar. Otherwise, we're going to have a very, very stern conversation. Your drivers for today are as follows. Remember I was talking about Thanassi in the AlphaTauri, how he's leading the championship by X amount of points? Well, he's not here. At least not for race 1. So it gives a prime opportunity if your name is, I don't know, Terziak in the Alpine, or his teammate, or any of the McLarens for that matter. It gives them a prime opportunity to perhaps just edge themselves further up in the standings. To which I say that breaks Twitch's terms of service and never do that again. Who will be first to blink in qualifying then? That's the question. The answer is it's usually Dirk, but we're going to find out if it will be Dirk in this particular instance. Full track map, lap data enabled. That was the wrong button to press. And let's go to Dirk. And as I was saying, I was right. I was absolutely right. Well, there you go then. Out comes Dirk onto the track here in Australia. Australia, coincidentally, the first ever track I commentated on in the Blackout Racing League. And that was a fair couple of months ago, that was, with Ivory, who is also apparently here for race 2 as well. So that'll be a nice little reunion. Here's Dirk then. The new Australia layout, of course, well I say new, it's a year old, so it's getting past infancy at this point. But crucially, of course, corners have been opened out for those of you that have been living under a significantly sized boulder. Corners have been opened out, some have changed. This one has changed dramatically. Now it's a massive full throttle complex. Also a DRS zone. Another one for the drivers to contend with. This chicane remains normal as usual. Through the left and then the right. The curb on the inside can catch you out, as can the curb on the outside if you go too wide. Pretty much all the curbs can catch you out. Don't use the curbs. That's my rule for today. Is Dirk ferociously weaving up the tyres, but behind him, the man who's joint with one of the McLarens in the standings, Buck 57. He'll be looking, like I said, to catch up to his teammate just that little bit. But anyway, let's look on Dirk's point of view, as we seem to always do in these. In fact, Dirk, I gave you loads of screen time last week, so I'm going to have to go to Buck 57. But let's look at a lap of the Albert Park circuit. Why is it after Albert? No idea. But we're going to gloss over that. And through turn 1 we go. A little bit of a slide through turn number 1. Getting a little bit grizzly out there. A bit of ice momentum, but it's fine. He grips it up, all back together. And away he goes to the next corner, the right-hander. Another corner that's been opened up. Breaks into it beautifully. Lots of wheel spin on the exit. The smell of rubber burning can wake up an Australian in the morning. And so Buck 57 is providing. Into this right-hander, flick it in, don't exceed track limits, and that is very, very comfortable indeed. Now for this full throttle section, keep it as close to the inside as possible, basically shortening the distance as much as possible. If you know Pythagoras' theorem, then, oh, no one cares actually. Through the chicane we go, flick it in once, flick it in twice, because that's nice. On the exit, no track limits being exceeded. Has Dirk exceeded them? No, he has not. So back to Buck 57 we go. The only Buck that is bringing the fizz today, as Buck 20 is not able to participate this week. Unbelievably. I think that's the first week I've done anyway that he hasn't been here for. That makes me very sad. But through the last couple of corners, the left-hander looked promising. The right-hander should be promising as well. Gets it all together. There's plenty of time on the table to find. Dirk sets a 1 minute 18.9. Buck 57 with a 1 minute 18.5. Very nice indeed. Next is Stark, and he goes fastest. Only by 300ths though. But here comes Captain Wilco. Commandeered his ship onto P3 currently. A 1 minute 18.7. Then it's the McLaren of Guardian, but he's exceeded his track limits, and that's the end of that. Next up is Square. That is literally his name. I'm not even paraphrasing here, but he goes down to 6th because, oh, the Buck 57's retired. Why has he done that? He's had an issue. Buck 57 has had major issues. Well, that's the end of his qualifying session before it's even begun. J-Lane across the line hasn't got a number on his car, but with the updated Ferrari car, the new updates being that he's got the sideboards are all red, I guess. But he goes only a 10th below Stark, so good on him. Milo up to 5th. with a 1 minute 18.8. Next up is the other Ferrari of Maximus, who's just started a lap. Then it's Terziak, the man second in the driver's standings, moves up to 4th with a 1 minute 18.708. So, the margins are fine. That's the evidence so far in Australia. Let's see who else can provide those fine margins. Here's Dan the Voice Gilligan, screaming, shouting, letting it all outing his way around the Australian circuit. He comes from a land down under. That's a good song, by the way. Run it if you haven't already. Look it up. Stream it as much as you want. Anyway, enough of the Men at Work endorsement. Question is, who is next to cross the line in this qualifying session? And, oh, who can it be now? It's Big Sam. DRS wide open, flap deployed, air being punched through, and it's 1 minute 20.0. And at the moment, last of the time setters. And that is not something I'm used for Red Bull saying. So, on with Guardian now. Across the line he goes. It's a 1 minute 34.1. He was driving Bahrain instead of the Australian Grand Prix track. But I think I might know why. He probably made a mistake. And so he goes again. So, the only people to set laps is one of them is this man. Dan the man. Through the right-hander, flicking it through. There's a Ferrari going on across the line. It's Maximus watching his time anxiously. See where he ends up. Doesn't end up anywhere. He has to restart his lap, and I assume he invalidated it. So, Dan Gilligan across the line. Hasn't invalidated his lap. He's been a good boy. Cross the line. P5 for the Alfa Romeo man. Very respectable indeed. And only 5 thousandths between him and Wilco in 6th. So, I told you the margins were fine. But the grid are finding very close shavings indeed here. King Didi's invalidated his lap, apparently, before it's even begun. And I imagine it's because he went wide in the final sector. Oh, dear. Here's Stark, then. Has gone for a second push lap, I think that is. So very bold there. Perhaps the tyres holding up better than we thought. The structural integrity of a salamander. Seems like they have good structural integrity, don't ask. Across the line, it is an improvement. And on older tyres, no less. Stark with a 1 at 18.2. And he is, at the moment, the master of having the blood in his head. So there you go then. Also, the Valvoline sponsorship. I'm proud to announce that Aston Martin are finally sponsored by Valvoline in this Blackout Racing series. They've seen the consistent efforts of Captain Wilco and Stark finding the heavy metal. And they have decided to continue, well, I say continue, start a partnership, in F123's case, for the foreseeable future. Tell you what I want to see, though, and I didn't get to see it because I'm a fool. It's actually Mercedes, and they've actually grown some side pods. So that's fun. Anyway, here's your provisional pole sitter. But we still have 10.5 minutes to go of this qualifying session. Feels like lots has happened in so little time, but alas, here we are. Stark, your pole sitter currently, by just under 2.5 tenths from Buck 57, who got a bit stuck 57, if you know what I'm saying. Stark gets dutifully out of the way, but it is this man. I haven't mentioned him yet. Welcome back to Jamie Tarquin, a reserve for this week in Blackout. Has hopped into the Red Bull, and we know Jamie Tarquin has pace by the wheelbarrow full, by the oil tanker full. Last season, of course, if you remember back to France, was right up there in the question for pole against Timalele and Thanassi. And I said it's the battle of the T's. Well, Jamie managed to put a J into the equation, although his last name does begin with a T, so I guess not. On board with Jamie Tarquin then. Through turn number 1 we go. Driver's taking it very cautiously through the first 2 corners, not using a lot of turn 2 at all. Down this little straight, braking at the black box as late as you dare, and Jamie Tarquin gets the front bitten in perfectly. Chomping down on the aerodynamic grip, on the downforce of the wings. A little bit of a slide through there, but he coolly collects it as he heads into the fast right-hander. Flick it in, 1 gear change down, and he's invalidated his time. So it was a purple sector 1. He has pace in spades, but not track limits. So that is quite unfortunate. So let's see what else is happening. Dirk's on another lap, and it is not red, which means it's good news. Through the right-hander. Again, flick it in. So many corners where you just have mid to high speed now. Only a couple of low-speed affairs. One being that left-hander. Dirk doesn't feel like that was enough to justify. Start finishing the lap, and into the pits he goes. Somebody will start another lap in this session. Big Sam, slowest of the time runners so far, but no matter. There is every chance he can impress here. Through turn 1, Again, like I said, the drivers, all of them that I've watched at least, very conservative through the first couple of corners. So we see Stark sliding into the pit lane with some extra flair. Let's go back to Big Sam. Or let's not go back to... Why can't I go back to Big Sam? There we go. We're back to Big Sam. Something happened with a Ferrari. It's not Maximus because he's just started a lap. I can only assume J-Lane had a little problem or was slowing to get out of the way of some cars. Anyway, back to Big Sam, as I promised I would. Down this back straight, where in real life, Red Bull are rampant against the rest of the opposition. In this case, with the equal cars, though, that doesn't apply. Number 7. Is he going to hit a Sui once this lap's ended? Well, we're about to find out. And I say about to find out. Give it about 30 seconds, and we'll let you know. Into this corner, you brake almost at the 50-meter board. It's such a heavy braking zone, but if you're feeling brave and have balls of steel, you can achieve anything you want. Unless you go full throttle into that corner, then you probably can't. Through the left-hander. Use all of the tracker as much as you dare to, or perhaps you use less of it to give yourself a more flowing run through the right-hander, but the aerodynamics do all the work. DRS deployed, and across the line for Big Sam, improves into the 1 minute 19s. A 1 second improvement for the Red Bull man, so well done to him. Great job there from Big Sam. 7.5 minutes, just under, to go in this session then. And here's someone who hasn't invalidated their lap. The man who's wearing and donning the number 3 for Daniel Ricciardo. Has he sent it at the Aussies' home track? Maximus has indeed. 1 minute 18.6 and only 1 place below his teammate J-Lane. Excellent stuff. And off Maximus continues on his merry way. Pretty good start for the Scuderia then. 3 and 4. They wouldn't be disgruntled by that at all in real life, given everything. Who's that getting out of the way? Is that Terziak getting out of the way again? The answer is yes, it is. Getting dutifully out of the way of both Red Bulls. Not on a lap in this particular instance, but it's always good to be alert. Meanwhile, the man with 6 squares has found himself in the triangular order. And by that, it's the red triangle saying give way. And it's not an ideal scenario because he's invalidated his lap. And so we'll have to rejig things, have to regain his confidence and go for it all over again. Meanwhile, here's the Mercedes with side pods. Wow! It's amazing, really. I always think about, what if Mercedes just use side pods? Just like all the time. What if they just use side pods anyway? Instead of just going for a 0-pod concept, which didn't work last year. The answer is we will never know, because they were like what Albert Einstein said, which is do the same thing twice and expect different results. You are insane. Across the line, Milo goes fastest. It's only 14 thousandths of a second. Like I said, fine margins here. But with 5.5 minutes to go, again, the McLaren man laying down the marker. And let's watch those times potentially tumble. Daniel Gilligan is not going to, because he's set the 3rd fastest time. And I missed that completely. So I apologise. He probably has a right to shout at me. J-Lane with a 1 minute 18.4. The time's slowly trickling down, actually. Perhaps not as fast as some might have feared, or in the case of Stark, you'll be laughing. Because if that's the time game your opponents have on a track that is evolving, and you're sitting in the garage at the moment waiting for the track to be at its best, then you might be feeling pretty smug in the cockpit of your car. Here's Terziak, though. The man who's second in the championship. There's a Williams and a Red Bull up ahead, who I am keeping an eye on, don't worry. So is it Square Boy or is it Dirkleton? The answer is it's Dirkleton, and he moves up to P6. I said at the end of last season, Dirk, I was very impressed with the rate of improvement he'd shown towards the end of last season, looking imperious. Jamie Tarquin, there he is, though. He announces himself, almost breaks into the 17s. Terziak, though, does brilliantly. 1 minute 17.6. And the Scotsman does indeed find freedom, and by 3 tenths, he's at the top of the leaderboard. Kudos to him. And Ivory has joined the party. Welcome along, Mr. Ivory. My commentating partner in crime this time last year for Australia and Baku. And by last year, I mean last season, because this wasn't done last year in real chronological terms. So, what can you say then? Terziak. There he is, your man of the moment so far with a 1 minute 17.6. Almost 3 and a bit tenths ahead of Jamie Tarquin in second in that Red Bull. Red Bull looking punchy. Feels like deja vu. Milo in 3rd, Stark in 4th, Daniel Gilligan in 5th. But my goodness, the margins between those 3 are nigh on minuscule. J-Lane 6th, Buck 57, lives up to the second part of his name in 7th. However, he has mucked it up 57 because he decked it into a barrier. And let me tell you, when you deck it into a barrier, I'll tell you what it does not yield. A faster time. So, what else happening in qualifying? That wasn't English. I refuse to care, unfortunately. So, let's have a look at the prancing horse. At times, it felt like this prancing horse has been tranquilized in real life. To be honest, it probably has been at times. But at least today, they are finding their feet, where in real life, all they found was lower points. So here we are with Maximus, and let's go on board with the Ferrari man, but out of the pits comes a McLaren. Let's hope they don't get in the way. They get dutifully out of the way, and Maximus using that curb on the outside. Finally, a driver I'm watching, using the limits of the track. Braking hard at the black box into the right-hander. Pinch the car in. Let the tyres bite into the bitumen, but keep it within the lines. That's the crucial thing. I've had a really intrusive thought, and that is I'd love to drive in one of these races. One day. One day I would. Never done a league race before. And it's because I've always felt more comfortable behind a microphone. But you know what? It'd be fun to join for at least one. And just to see what on earth I'd do. Here's Ivory, though, coming out of the pit lane. Like I said, my commentating partner in crime lives across the pond. It's a very big pond, but he lives there. Welcome along. I would play the American National Anthem, but if you play that, apparently, in Manchester, you get booed. So let's go back to Maximus. Maximising the... By God, he's maximising the potential. A bit of a twitch on there. Subscribe to my Twitch. As we head through the left-hander, using a lot of that curb, my goodness me, but keeping it within the realms, not getting it on the grass, not ferreting up his tyres, and as he has DRS open, using the slipstream, using that fresh air, it's a 1 minute 18.1, and third place for the prancing horse. Very nice, a bit of a spring in his step. Maximus holding down the top of the second row here in qualifying. However, there are times that are a tumbling, one of which is from this man. Stark held provisional pole early on. Has a 6/10 deficit to Terziak, though, to try and make up, if he's to keep that. DRS open. Use bit of the curb on the outside. Using all of the track he can. And Stark does go fastest. A 1 minute 17.5. So here we go then. The time's tumbling down. His teammate behind him starts another lap in this session. Where's Slam? I'm pressing the wrong button is the answer to that question. It's Ivory crossing the line to start his first and probably only lap of this qualifying session. His teammate coming through the right-hander. Mercedes feeling a bit nullified so far this Blackout season. However, I think in Qatar they had a decent go at things. I can't remember because I wasn't there for the end of it. However, today perhaps they can show me that they were, as I suspect. Across the line goes Slam. And he sets a time absolutely identical to the Williams of Squareboy. Unfortunately, though, because Squareboy set the time first, he's feeling very rectangular and wide and holding down P11. Lots of time starting to be set then. Guardian will set the time as he crosses the line. And what time can he get? It's a 1 minute 19.5. Not a vast improvement. However, if he's feeling lucky, he's going to probably go for it again. If not, and well, it would be weird if you... Oh, no! What on earth's happened there? Who's that in a spin? It has to be one man in the Alfa Romeo. Daniel Gilligan has met barrier. Dramatic stuff for the Alfa Romeo man. Starting his last lap of this qualifying session. The checkered flag is out. That was his last chance. And dramatically, Daniel Gilligan finds himself pirouetting and spinning out of contention. Wilco, I'm sorry, I haven't watched your lap, mate. 3/10 off his teammate in third. And now let the times tumble. Ivory across the line for his only time. And it is last, unfortunately, but still a good effort, considering it was the only lap of the session. Let's see who comes across the line next. It's Dirkleton. There's a spin in the background for a Ferrari. J-Lane pirouetting round. Unfortunately, it was only done half of the way and had to recover it. So it's a 6 out of 10 from Craig Revel Horwood. The Haas car, King Didi, though, had a good go at things. No track limits extended across the line. P11 for the Haas driver. Not too shabby at all. A pit lane entry for the Mercedes man. Also pitting is Jamie Tarquin. Only one man can try and prize pole position away from the Aston Martin team. Stark probably guaranteed a front row unless Miller has something to say about it. But Terziak rounds the final corner. That is a lot of track being used. And as he goes across the line, it's pole position by 18 thousandths of a second. Unbelievable stuff. Terziak pushed it to the absolute limit and then some. And found the grip, found his confidence and never looked back. Brilliant stuff. The Alpine driver surely has it in his back pocket. Dan Gilligan retires from the session, as does the man of many squares, and I don't blame him. That is qualifying done and dusted. Just Guardian to come into the pits and conclude his qualifying session. But when push comes to shove, well, who pushed it and shoved it onto pole? It's this man we're on board with. Terziak does it in Australia. Fantastic stuff from the Alpine driver. At the death, gets it done. Ahead of Stark in the Aston Martin, who can still be proud of his qualifying performance nonetheless. And as we saw last season, pole sitter made a mistake in the race. Granted, he did go on to win it, but the qualifying margins back then were much bigger. Here, we see a slightly more competitive edge. Terziak and Stark, your front row. Aston Martin 2 and 3. They can be very happy with that indeed. Jamie Tarquin in 4th with Maximus in 5th. Dirkleton in 6th with Millo and Dan Gilligan holding down row 4. J-Lane and Buck 57 complete the top 10. Buck 57 only set one time at the beginning and still is 10th with King Didi, Squaresman, Slam, Big Sam, Guardian and Ivory rounding off your grid lineup. So there you are. Qualifying is done. Down under. Congratulations to Terziak for getting pole position. I will give him a clap. Okay, that's enough of that. So, on to race day. Time moves very fast in the world of Formula 1 in this game. We're already in race day. Fantastic stuff. There are two men glitching through the windows there. So I can only assume they've had a horrible night out. That's the only way of explaining what's happened there. Either that or it's aliens. It's probably aliens, actually. Anyway, here we are. Surveying the pit lane. DHL sponsorships everywhere. DHL, of course, standing for, in the world of Formula 1, don't hit Le Barrier. Le Barrier is one word, just to be quite clear. In the region of Melbourne, this track first saw Formula 1 action in 1996. It was then Damon Hill who won the first race of the season. Could well have been Jack Villeneuve, actually. It also was when Martin Brundle rolled dramatically on the very first lap. Miraculously escaped with no injuries whatsoever. Unbelievably. In the end, it was Damon Hill that won because Jack Villeneuve had oil pouring out the back of his car and had to relinquish the lead. It was almost a championship he won in his rookie season. The only man to have done that almost since then was one Sir Lewis Hamilton, who lost the championship by 1 point in his rookie year. For reasons beyond my comprehension. But anyway, enough of that. 5 red lights down under. Lights out and away we go, and it could be a decent start from Terziak. It's not a decent start at all. The soft tyres bite into the bitumen beautifully. Off goes Stark. My computer's had an issue. Who cares? Let's carry on. Why am I looking at scaffolding? There's been an issue for someone though, and Dan Gilligan's pirouetting. He's had an oopsie. But looking back at the front then, Stark leads from Terziak. Then Jamie Tarquin, who's got the better of Miller, I think it was, who was in third. Oh, it was Captain Wilco, sorry. Of course, I've got a really bad short-term memory. Wilco was in third, down to 6th, though. My goodness me. Ivory having a good go in that Mercedes car. Has to settle at the moment for 15th. So, Stark, Terziak, Jamie Tarquin, though, on the move. Terziak not with the greatest exit out of the right-hander. And here comes the Red Bull driver. Fantastic, and through goes the Red Bull driver. But Stark already trying to check out. Almost a second between himself and the Red Bull driver. Let's see what's going on, though. Wilco trying to look at rectifying his mistakes. Right under the diffuser of Maximus. An opportunity, perhaps, to go for an overtake into the right-hander. Thinks better of it at the moment. It's better to just have survival at this point in the race. Just coax it into life. King Didi, though, is having a great go at things. Up into 8th place. Great stuff from the Haas driver. The Ferrari of J-Lane goes wide. Someone's gone even wider. Massively wide there from Guardian, who meets gravel big time, has fun in the sandbox, and here comes Ivory for a move, round the outside, and it's the best move I've ever seen. Anyways, here's J-Lane in the pit lane, and has to get a new front wing already. Terrible news there. Dan Gilligan, by the way, despite having the slight oopsie at the first corner, is still on the back of this pack, and it's all close quarters still. So, Don't count him out of this race by any stretch of the imagination. He still has a good chance of getting some big points in this race. He's already got 1 point to his name. So that's a positive. Look at it that way. Stark leads by 1.5 seconds almost to Jamie Tarquin. Great stuff from the Aston Martin driver who, like I said, looking to check out at the front of this race. And with DRS not being able to be used by Jamie Tarquin come the next lap. Touch wood. And there's a lot of wood in my desk, so you're looking good, my friend. But with not much opportunity for that DRS to be used, and through that fast complex of corners, Stark is so confident. Absolutely flurries the car through there. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Smooth as you like. Buck 57, meanwhile, up to 9th. We're seeing Dan Gilligan making places up, and he gets past Ivory straight away in that Alfa Romeo car. Ivory thinks about trying to deter him, but the feint to the inside is not enough to scare the Alfa Romeo driver. And up into P14, his crusade begins for the higher points in this race. Stark then, as DRS enabled, he is your leader by 1.5 seconds and increasing that gap. Jamie Tarquin in second, but Terziak will have DRS on this lap. Not yet, of course, because this is a secondary DRS zone that only works after the detection point at the end of the previous lap. Milo in 4th, Maximus in 5th, beginning to equalise out, but it's Wilco who's looking punchy in that second Aston Martin car. King Didi up to 7th, but slamming that Mercedes with sprouted side pods in 8th. Buck 57 in 9th, and Dirkleton in 10th, but looking punchy as well. Here we are, though, Terziak's first opportunity to get a move done on the Red Bull driver, on board with him, and it's an absolute gazumping. My God, he's absolutely flown past there like a Saturn V rocket, shooting for the stars, and Terziak does indeed get P2 at the moment, and with a second helping of DRS, will be right onto the back of Stark and potentially in his DRS clutches. If not, it's still fine for these two, because at the end of the day, they can work together if they don't get within that 1 second barrier. Still very close indeed. Might not have got DRS on Stark. Terziak, though, looking very quick and competent indeed. Is DRS open? The answer is no, he does not get it. But he does set the fastest lap of the race, and 1 minute 20.5 is the benchmark. So, how are the soft tyres working versus the mediums? That is the question. Through the first couple of corners, looks like they're doing just fine in Stark's case. Now Terziak has to watch him from behind him. It's a backwards nightmare. Raiden says good luck. Tell you what, your teammate's doing quite well. Someone who's not a Guardian's had a spin. Not again. I remember what happened with Guardian last season. He was one of the 3 cars that caused L red flag at the British Grand Prix last year. Dan Gilligan, though, like I was saying, up into P13. Gap now 5 seconds between him and Big Sam. So, it's time for the Alfa Romeo driver to get his fast shoes on. Stark, though, does have Terziak deploying DRS behind him. Or does he? No, he isn't deploying DRS. Stark just didn't have a great run down that straight. And Terziak hasn't particularly used much DRS here. So, things are getting interesting now. Terziak well within the DRS range of the Aston Martin. Alpine potentially looking for a win. Terziak looking for his first win of the season. He's got 2nd place on so many occasions. And now he's finally going to look at trying to aim even higher to the top step of the podium on those medium tyres. Gap 0.3 of a second. And things now can get very saucy indeed. Wilco, by the way, did get past Maximus. Up into P5 for the 2nd Aston Martin. Both Aston Martins on the soft tyres at the beginning, thinking that biting into the bitumen with a bit more zest is a good idea. Well, we'll find that out. Big Sam, meanwhile, going for a move. King Didi, who was up in P7, now fighting with the Red Bull. It's getting very argy-bargy between the two of them. King Didi's still there, but Big Sam round the outside. But it is the Haas driver who will hold supremacy in his favour for the time being. Big Sam sliding about immensely, though. Looks like he's absolutely casseroled his tyres. And that plays into the hands of this man here. Here comes Terziak, though. DRS wide open. No move into the chicane. Dan Gilligan with a 3-second time penalty already. Cutting corners does work sometimes in F1, though. They do not take that very lightly. Again, not going for the move here because he knows the start-finish straight is there. And it gives one Mr. Stark an opportunity to just save his battery. Just save his tyres a little bit. It's confidence that you need round this track, and Stark, by being at the front and having clean air in front of him, doesn't have to worry about adjusting his braking points or perhaps worrying about dirty air in front of him. It's all absolutely minute but imperative calculations that you make when you're in this train about when to brake, how to execute the maneuver, when to execute the maneuver. Catching is one thing, passing is another. And passing safely is another thing entirely. Terziak then still not able to make the move on the Valvoline Aston Martin car of Stark. Holding down that position with great iron. Sturdy stuff from the man in the Aston Martin clan. Again through the right-hander. Looking like he's getting a bit jiggy with the grass at points there. Trying to absolutely maximise every single inch of track he can possibly use. Let's watch his ERS deployment. Let's watch Terziak's while we're here. Answer is hardly using it right now. Ivory with a 3-second time penalty. No! Don't cut corners. Rule number 1. This is probably a prime opportunity again for Terziak. You have to be right underneath the diffuser of the other car behind you in order to make that move stick. And the reason he's not overtaking is because he's actually protecting himself from Jamie Tarquin behind. Both of these guys clearly have the pace to get away from the Red Bull driver, and it's working. Terziak and Stark then probably having a plot, a mental plot, probably not saying it to each other because they're on rival teams, but probably planning to work together. Stark, though, coming across, they're definitely not working together because Terziak with a great exit, supreme momentum, and the Alpine driver up into P1. Back to where he started in this race. Terziak resumes the lead of this Grand Prix. Meanwhile, it's a Haas that's had a problem, and King Didi has met barrier. You can see shards of carbon fibre scattered all across the inside of the track, and the safety car has been deployed here on lap number 7. And if you're a soft tyre runner, you'll be feeling pretty smug right now, won't you? Into the pits then come a bunch of drivers. The Voice. Hopefully we'll show echoes of his extremely good pace in qualifying here throughout the rest of this race with a safety car. That will help to neutralise things, and that will be great news for him. Ivory into the pits as well, Guardian into the pits, and J-Lane coming in for a new set of mediums. And the man who had front wing damage had to come in, repair it on lap number 1, has got himself a get-out-of-jail-free ticket, which in Monopoly is for some people a cheat code, or if you lose a lot of the time, like me, and want to save your finances, actually it's not a great thing. If I'm in jail and it's endgame, rule number 1, if someone has more properties than you, just stall time as much as possible. If you're playing with someone that doesn't know the rules very well as well, yes, it might be classified as cheating, but if they don't know the rules, technically it's not. So, the question is now, who comes into the pits? The answer is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once I caught a fish alive. 6, 7, 8. Does Dirkleton come in? 8. Yes, he does. 9. Yes, he does. 10. Don't let my fish go. Oh, you plum sack. Why would you do that? Now I've lost my dinner. Oh, well, anyway. Stark onto a brand new set of mediums. Terziak, though, has no option because of how early it is in this race to go onto any other tyre. He has to strap on the hard boots onto his Alpine. Although, considering his pace against the softs on his mediums, that actually might not be a bad thing for him, let's be honest. So as everyone comes into the pits then, let's see where they all come out. Dan Gilligan could jump the Haas car, King Didi here. Of course, had to replace his front wing. That'll be one more position gained for the Alfa Romeo man, and does indeed get ahead. So there you go. Another position gained. Was down in the doldrums for a little bit, but down under could turn his race on his head, which he'd very much be hoping for, as he's currently down in 12th. Welcome along for those of you that are watching here in Blackout Season 2 at the Australian Grand Prix. Plenty of action down under so far. And let me take you through the order quickly, as we are under safety car conditions. Behind the red Mercedes car, they should use these instead of traffic wardens. They'll be more visible. Terziak is in first place in the Alpine, your pole sitter for this race. Stark in P2 with Jamie Tarquin in P3. The front two really having a good go at it, but don't count out Tarquin for 1 second. Milo in 4th, Maximus in 5th. Captain Wilco has sailed his ship into 6th place. Buck 57 in 7th with Dirkleton, Slam and Big Sam completing your top 10. The back of the grid has seen many scuffles and many pirouettes and barrier moments so far. And I can only assume there will be more as this race goes on. So, a little bit about the Australian Grand Prix then, while we are here. Of course, before Melbourne, before Albert Park, there was an Australian Grand Prix, and it was Adelaide. The Adelaide Street Circuit. Everyone remember that? If you don't, look it up, because it was one hell of a track, let me tell you. Saw many a moment, it must be said. Saw in 1992, Senna and Mansell coming to blows. In 1994, it was where Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill collided in, well, rather dubious circumstances, let's be honest. But at the end of the day, it was Michael Schumacher that claimed his first of 7 Drivers' World Championships at that track. In 1995, it was where Mika Hakkinen had a, quite frankly, horrendous crash. Had his life saved after the impact. If you watch the impact, his head gets thrown around so badly. In what was then a massive, basically a coffin back then. It was a miracle. They survived that, and it's because of an on-site tracheotomy that saved his life. Despite that, he would become a double world champion just a couple of years later. So there you go. Well then, for some reason, spectator mode's taken over, and we're watching Buck 57. I have no idea why. I have no idea what I've pressed for that to happen. Clearly, he's a highlight of this race. Or something's gone horribly wrong. It's not letting me have control, Captain. Oh. We've skipped the safety car. It's broadcast mode, that's why. See, I was just testing you lot. Broadcast safety car then, no problems whatsoever. And in theory, no changes to the order, although if you've watched a My Team career mode episode before, you'll know that it can be interesting. At least they haven't put wet tyres on a dry track. But anyway, Adelaide happened. Last race there in 95. In 96, they moved here to the Albert Park circuit. Memorable races from this track? Well, there's been some. 2010 comes to mind. That was quite a chaotic race, it must be said. It was Jenson Button that won that race that year. Fresh off his championship win in 2009. On board with Buck 57, meanwhile, the safety car is in this lap. So clearly, they don't want me to talk about the history of Formula 1. That doesn't matter. Here we go then. I've regained control, Captain, and I'll tell you who has control. It's this man, Terziak. Control of the field, control of the pace. Can pull the trigger whenever he wants, and does so through the final corner. But Stark is privy to it. He's privy to it, and he's very much aware of what he needs to do. It could be a sumptuous move into turn 1. Using the outside line. Stark could be left the space on the outside. It's not left much space, but it means Jamie Tarquin's there on the outside, and he has nowhere to go either. It's a big scuffle between the top 3, but it means Millo's now on the move. Up into 3rd place for the McLaren man, and he's on the softs. He's gone extremely bold in this race, my goodness, but Jamie Tarquin won't give it up. Using the outside line, has the momentum, but he has to concede to the McLaren man. Excellent stuff. Maximus now on the attack, with Wilco waiting in the wings. My goodness me, it's all happened here, but King Didi's retired. No! Absolute massive accident in the background there. Into the wall on the right. And once again, yellow flags deployed. Guardian with a 5-second penalty for a severe collision with J-Lane. Well, but based on evidence, J-Lane crashed into him. So, while the stewards have a skill issue, it's a second safety car and I want to die. So that's fun. Terziak then remains in the lead. Stark P2. It's now Millo that holds down 3rd place for the McLaren team. The Papaya Pros. Jamie Tarquin in 4th. Raiden says safety car assist. Well, they're going to have to use it again here. Squares has left the session. And Terziak comes into the pits. Now, that's interesting. Yes, it's an assisted safety car. But he'll surely drop way down. There's no way he doesn't drop way down. Presumably pitting onto a fresh set of soft tyres, and he does. But Stark now has the power in his hands, really. Big up the safety car. And the winner for the most laps led this season goes to the safety car. Although he still hasn't led more laps than Thanassi, and that makes me upset, really, because it just means Thanassi's better than me. And that's a bad hit for my ego. Terziakin, as I said, comes out P11. And yes, I know he's on the soft tyres. Yes, I know he's super quick, but we've seen, even with DRS, the opportunities here at overtaking at Albert Park can be fleeting, to say the least. So is it? Is it the correct decision? The answer is, well, I'm not going to say anything because I've proved to be wrong almost every single time. Milo has left the session for some reason, meanwhile. I can only assume it's connection issues or Codemasters issues. And both go hand in hand, so there you go. Thanassi, the GOAT. I'm pretty sure he's a man. But he does drive pretty well, I will admit. So, Stark your leader now then, as Terziak has pit. Milo in P2 in the McLaren, with Jamie Tarquin third. Maximus fourth. Captain Wilco has steered his ship into 5th place and commandeering potentially more points in this race. Buck 57 up to 6th place with Derek Dirkleton in 7th. Slam in 8th, Big Sam in 9th. Dan Gilligan, who was right at the back of the field at the beginning of this race, now up into P10. While we're under this safety car, then I'm not going to talk about Formula 1. I have a environmental question to ask. This will probably intrigue loads of you. Milo's left the session again, meanwhile. That's not environmental issues, that's network issues. Well, you know how, like, most bottles are wrapped in plastic, right? Like, I've seen this on Lucozade bottles as well now. They've started doing this thing where only the top half is, like, coloured, but then they've made the bottom clear plastic. And I don't know why that is. And it's really confused me. So if anyone knows why that is, I assume it's probably a really simple reason, that it's easier to recycle or something. At the end, well, it's still plastic for the first part, but secondly, I'd love to know why they've only made half of it coloured and snazzy, and the other half transparent. That's my question of the day. Safety car assist, we look at Terziak. Your pole sitter for this weekend now finds himself in P11 and with a whole host of positions to make up. And therefore, a truck ton of work to do. Lap number 13 then. The safety car's apparently faster than most of the grid because he absolutely sped off. And why Stark in third? Right. Well, something has happened here because I don't remember this being the case. Jamie Tarquin's now down in 14th. I don't remember that happening. Let me just check the race director to confirm this. Right, what's happened there then? What has happened there? That's a massive issue that's happened there because, I mean, Milo's not going to be complaining, but the game's had a massive skill issue. Milo, who was in P2, now leads. Stark somehow is in P3. I have no idea how, but it's gone absolutely balls up in the air in terms of the stewarding and the positions in this race. Terziak now down to 13th. Jamie Tarquin has been completely shafted and is now down to P14. Dirkleton's now up in P2. What on earth has happened in this safety car period? Someone must have paid off the stewards. That's the only way I can explain it. Someone's actually tipped off the stewards. Or noshed them. Which is disgusting. But away we go. Milo leads the field off then. And if you thought Abu Dhabi 2021 was controversial, well, you haven't seen anything yet. So, oh, Maximus has crashed already or something has happened. He's retired. I've no idea why. Oh, my God. Why have so many cars? Oh, no. Dirk spun it. Massive accident. Massive accident behind. Dan Gilligan into the wall. It's a Ferrari. It's a red flag in this race. Terziak's retired. So many cars have found the barrier. My goodness me. Massive issues have happened. Everyone's left the session. And probably there have been massive issues. I'm guessing everyone's going to retire from the session. That's what's going to happen. Either that, or there genuinely was a huge crash. Raiden says, what has Miller... Why is it raining? Oh, everyone's left the session. Well, I can only guess what that means, then. I can guess that means Codemasters were Codemasters. Milo leads them away, then. Oh, there's been a massive spin. Why is Buck 57 still on soft? It's raining, man. Well, there you go. That's the Australian Grand Prix. That is the Australian Grand Prix. Well, lads, if you want to make it interesting, do a 5-lap sprint. That's what I ask. What has Milo done? I think I know what Milo has done. Because, like I said, the safety car had issues. Well, Milo wins the Grand Prix. So Williams in second. I don't really know what's happened. Wara GP. Well, there you go then. Milo wins. Squares is identical to him. But through complete wizardry and drugs, he's P2. Buck 57, despite somehow being faster than both of them, is in P3. Wow. So just to be quite clear, this has all gone really well. And by really well, it's all gone tits up. Meanwhile, I can actually read why there have been some plastic bottle changes. Raiden says this redesign will ensure that the bottles can be sorted into the clear waste stream to be recycled back into bottles at UK recycling centres. Okay. Interesting. So does that mean... Well, I assume there must be like a thing where it has to be like half of it must be clear then. In order for it to be recyclable. Must be that. I can't think of any other reason why. Right. Well, there you go then. I apologise if you were expecting some Australian Grand Prix bonanza. Well, we kind of got an Australian Grand Prix bonanza, but it was not the one I was expecting. Massive accidents. Everybody crashed, and we know why. It's because safety car assist desisted Mr. Tarquin. So, there you go. The more you know, I suppose. Well, we wait with patience and with bated breath to see what happens here. They're all beginning to join again now. So, I'll put some music on. My brother asks what just happened. Well, Jay, once upon a time, there was a group called Codemasters. Unfortunately, they ignored the second part of their name. And one day, they decided, you know what we're going to do to make the safety car less, what's the word I'm looking for? Grueling. We're going to add an assist. That'll be great. What they didn't account for was not having the second half of their name wrapped up. So, that's why Jamie Tarquin, who was running in a very, very respectable P3, ended up P14. F1, brought to you by Code. Exactly. It's just code. It's not very good code either, at points. Most of their code they're invested into F1 World and Breaking Point. And look how they turned out. Speaking of breaking points, I'm at mine with this game, to an extent. I'm going to drink some water. And have a whiff of it as I remember the days of good game design. Well, that was lovely. Anyway, let me put some music on in the background. And we'll have a little discussion. Feel free to ask away or do whatever it is you want to do. Because I don't have any plans currently. There we go. Bit of music to keep me going. Raiden's here. Hello. And it turns out we're going to be waiting for Miami. That's what I can tell you. We're going to be waiting for Miami. Oh, dear. Second place earlier than planned. Well, there you go. Red flag in Australia and doing it at a later moment. Well, there you go. If your name's Thanassi, you're in luck. Because you, in fact, didn't have to miss Australia at all. We never redid Monaco, did we? Stark's not wrong, we didn't. Perhaps it's Monaco time. That's all I'm saying. I can hear pitchforks being drawn out. So let's not do that, shall we? Let's instead wait a hot minute. And then we are going to go off to Miami. That was a bit anticlimactic. I'm very sorry about that. But unfortunately, Codemasters and skill issues go hand in hand. It's like the common cold. It's infectious. Anyways, that concludes race 1. Was actually proving to be an interesting set of affairs. I was looking forward to commentating the rest of it. Looked like it was going to be some great fun. Unfortunately, we will never know who was going to win that race. Buck57's lost his P2 forever, which is very sad. Milos lost his victory. But there you go. What can you do? We're going to head to Miami, though. We're not done for tonight. We're going to head to Miami, which is the second race of the night. And then Australia, well, I assume we'll do that on a later day, on another day where the sun shines brighter. So, be sure to stay tuned for that. In a few minutes' time, we head to the Miami Grand Prix.
I was looking into darkness for something to hold on. Found you when you were so broken, and I felt something was wrong. I think I'm in love, 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 I'm in love with you. I'm in love with you. Ooh, I'm in love with you. I think I'm in love, 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 I'm in love with you. I'm in love with you. Summer days burn me out, love just brings me down. Cold inside like windshield leaves that slowly leave the ground. Hey, you come back, I wanna give you a chance. Love me like you used to, so we can learn again. The skin is getting round, baby, drink your night away. Maybe we will not regret it, you will not regret me. Laying down under the sun, burning love cause we are young. No one tells us what's done wrong, cause it's just me and you. Yeah, it's just me and you. Yeah, it's just me and you.
It's just me and you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Once again. It's time for qualifying at the Miami Grand Prix. I would normally say it like that, but I'm a bit disgruntled with code stinkers. Because we just had an Australian Grand Prix. Very much looking forward to the last few laps of the race. Until they had coding issues and skill issues and many other issues besides those. As a result, ended up with those towards the front, some of them near the back, and those who were otherwise in the midfield towards the front. In other words, making F1 a lottery. Oh dear. Anyways, here we are, the Miami Grand Prix, renowned for being very exciting and having no boring races in Formula 1 whatsoever. And no cringy intros. Oh my god, it's absolutely freaking tanking it down here in qualifying. Raining cats and dogs. If it was raining those, that'd be unethical. So it's raining quite a lot is all I'm trying to say. Here we are then. For an absolutely torrential qualifying twist. And that torrential qualifying twist is the weather. For it is absolutely shocking it down, mate. Let's go on with the man who's always first out of the pit lane and the first one to acclimatise himself to these wet conditions. And it is Mr. Dirkleton. Of course, in the wet conditions, I mean, this track in the wet. Any track in the wet, you have to be so careful on the power. You have to have such a deft touch. You have to be light as a feather out there. Smooth. Fly like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Do it like Muhammad Ali. This is going to be... Yeah. Yeah, I know. What I suggest is you run the last 5 laps. Oh, dear. Right. Oh, no. Right, Dirk's had a moment, and by a moment, I mean a big moment, for he's out of qualifying. So that kind of shows you how tricky the conditions are, then. The Williams driver is firmly out of it. Those of us that were doing like I was saying, though, before I was interrupted by a moderate pirouette, what I think is you should do the last 5 laps of the race, starting in the positions you were at when the safety car happened. Because then those of you at the front are at the front, those of you that were at the back are at the back, and it's an even playing field. And you have 5 laps of racing, and not like 1 lap and a bit. Just me? Good suggestion? No? Stark agrees. You know what? Let's suggest that right here, right now. 5 lap sprint at the end of Australia. For those of them that are at the front, you know what the grid was. You can watch back my live stream. I could probably tell you what it was, to be honest with you. In no uncertain terms. I could actually probably figure it out. Who was where? So if we're doing it, are we doing it when Terziak pit or without Terziak pitting? For instance, like us, I propose you finish the cursed race and run the race again at a later date. Points awarded based on the best result for the drivers that attended both races. I'll process that later once I've gone through Big Sam's lap. Sorry, I've gone into commentator mode. On board with Big Sam, the first man to actually brave the wet conditions at the Miami Grand Prix and brave them with some style. Through the first few corners. Oh, there's a Ferrari in the wall. Who the heck is that? It's J-Lane with an oopsie. And there's a bit of carbon fibre, I think, that has been sheared off the front wing on the front right end plate. Yes, there is. Meanwhile, back to Big Sam we go. Through the first complex of corners, keeping it all together. You have to be so careful on the traction. Like I said, a deft touch is what's going to win someone this qualifying session. Not being too overzealous. And it's a purple sector 1 for the Red Bull driver. On board with him as we head down this first DRS zone of the track. I was going to say a straight, but it's not even a straight because it's a corner, really. If you think about it. Into this braking zone, normally the 100-meter board, but here slightly earlier, just so you can get the car stopped, and even then, that was still too late. Aliens have control of the car. I've seen more aliens in Star Wars 9. Through into this section, though, you can take loads of curb on the inside of that corner. Right, there are aliens everywhere. I'm not even going to kid you. Area 51 is not the place to go. Just come to F123. Lots of whip. And that was Big Sam, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed. Let's see who else is on the lap. Buck 57 is on the lap. So is Milo. Milo is a bit further up the road, so let's have a look at him first. Oh, that's pretty nice. Sorry, the driving. Yeah, that's nice as well. Don't worry. Into the left-hander. Brake as late as you dare. Again, still too late. It has to be slightly earlier even for the drivers, as they try and acclimatise themselves to these wet weather conditions. Through into the left-handers then. Lots of curb on the inside if you dare. And again, you can probably bounce over that one a little bit as well, if you so desire to. But it does run the risk of unsettling the car. Down the straight we go. Miller with a purple sector 2. Courtesy of the fact that he's probably the first one to set one anyway. Because Big Sam is rejoined. Bless him. But his car just disagreed with it as soon as his wife disappeared. Wi-Fi. I said his wife. No, his wife hasn't disappeared, to be quite clear, if he does have a wife. Through the left-hander. Again, braking too late at those slow-speed corners. That's what's going to catch the drivers out. That's where the valuable temps will be gained. But for a first lap, it's respectable. And across the line, it's 1 minute 43.0. Buck 57 will be next. And there he is. His teammate Thanassi ahead of him, who has joined. So everyone prepared to be disappointed, to be honest with you, because he's going to get pole by about 6 years. But here comes Buck 57. So at least gives us some zesty zest. Yellow flags up ahead. It'll be an Aston Martin, hopefully getting out of the way or just peeling into the pit lane. As across the line goes Buck 57, and he goes fastest with 1 minute 42.8, just over 2 tenths ahead. Nice and nifty little lap there from the AlphaTauri driver. Oh no! Terziak's joined Lord Voldemort. I was about to say he's on a lap because the dialogue box next to him, 1 made me stutter and 2 didn't exist. But that's why he's not doing a lap. He's invalidated it, and he's ended up with egg on his face. His face. Why can't I do English today? That's horrible. Anyway, who will be next to cross the line? It'll be Slam to cross the line on a 1 minute 43.5. Dan Gilligan, though. My God, he loves the wet conditions, doesn't he? 1 minute 41.7. Quite the disparity between the grid so far in this session, but Dan Gilligan absolutely going for it in this session. Brilliant stuff from the Alfa Romeo driver, who, in the wet to dry Bahrain qualifying and race, absolutely loved the transitional conditions. He couldn't get enough of them. And if this is a full wet qualifying, well, he could be looking at some tasty points today. Maximus, by the way, not far off. Recently crossed the line, 1 minute 41.9. But here comes Thanassi. Championship leader, missed out on Australia. Unfortunately for that race in particular, it was cancelled. But across the line he comes here in Miami. Will it be provisional pole? It will not be provisional pole. It's way off provisional pole. 8 tenths off for the AlphaTauri driver, which is not what I expected at all. But it is his first lap of the day, so I probably can let him off. Here's Big Sam. Tuned out his dial-up internet and is on his outlap. Meanwhile, here's Stark. Bit of a slide through that right-hander, but we'll ride on board with the Aston Martin man. In fact, let's take a breather. Let's have a pause. And there's a yellow flag. What's happened? No, what has actually happened? And Buck 57 has had a problem. How big is it? It's a big problem. He has no nose. Anyway, where were we? There's Stark. I was going to ride on board with him, but I'm now going to have to commentate it. Because I feel like the silence would do it injustice. Through what would be a DRS zone normally. Miami, of course, is where Thanassi won last year. That was his stomping ground. Did a soft to medium strategy. Absolutely imperious pace. And no one could touch him. No one could touch him. He was absolutely astronomically quick. But Stark is shooting for the stars here in qualifying. 13th place. Very disgruntled about the outcome of Australia. And I'd be inclined to agree if I was in his position. Right at the sharp end, leading the race, and then suddenly down in third through no fault of his own, really. Horrible scenario. Like I said, let it be a 5-lap sprint in the positions that it was when the safety car happened. And then we can all be happy. What could possibly go wrong there? Into the left-hander, brake as late as you dare. Stark does get it through the corner with no hiccups whatsoever. Plant on the power. Rinse the reward. Can he reap what he sows, which is a fast time? Yes, he does. Third place in a 1 minute 42.3. Meanwhile, Milo has got ahead of not Stark. He's got ahead of Thanassi, should I say. Although he could be ahead of Stark soon, depending on how many laps he's planning on doing and acclimatizing to the track with. The answer is he's not doing another lap there. Very circumspect indeed. So there you go then. Pole sitter so far, Dan Gilligan. 1 minute 41.7, and it looks like he's going for it again here. Gets early on the brakes, does exactly what he needs to do, and actually comes into the pits, so never mind. Well, let's see what Guardian can do. Here he is. Again going wide. Like I said, the slow corners are the ones catching out the drivers. Oh no! It definitely catches out the drivers. Too zesty on the power, too much gas on the loud pedal, and as a result, he's absolutely thwomped it into the barrier. Front left sheared off, and Pride extremely damaged. Let's go to Captain Wilco, though. He's got Captain in his name and should be sailing through these wet conditions in his speedboat. Short shifts to 4th gear to dull down the revs and give himself the traction he needs. And actually finds it supremely. Across the line he goes. 7th place for now. For the Aston Martin man. Nearly said it there. For the Aston Martin man. Half a second off his teammate, but still a reputable showing from the English-based team. Who's yet to set lap times, though? One of them is this man. Terziak. Through the Michael Rat section. Which is weird why it's named Mickey Mouse, because it looks nothing like Mickey Mouse. Why would they say that? Anyway, though, a purple Sector 2 for Terziak. I was unfamiliar with your game, sir. I'm very much familiar with it now, though. Down towards the hairpin. Big Sam ahead of him has got absolutely no battery left whatsoever. Does break in time for the hairpin. Could complete this lap, should he choose to, although with no battery left, I'll be shocked if he does. Never mind, my shot can be curbed for 2 seconds. I'll ride on board with Terziak as Big Sam crosses the line. Goes up to 9th place. What can Terziak do? Oh my goodness me, he's absolutely launched it. Terziak, the pole sitter last time out in Australia, has pole by a second over his next closest competitor. What a phenomenal lap from the Alpine driver. The French team, notorious for waving a white flag and becoming a bit of a panneau chocolat. Terziak's just as sweet, but not nearly as flaky. A very solid lap indeed. Meanwhile, there goes Big Sam in the Red Bull, just off for a bit of sightseeing. The fake marina actually might have some water in it now, which is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, let's see what is occurring elsewhere. The answer is Wilco's gone for a second lap and goes faster, 1 minute 42.4. As the fuel burns off, as he gets more confident with the track conditions, he's really, really finding his feet, and that is great news for him. Meanwhile, here's Thanassi just starting a lap. Dan Gilligan as he crosses the line now. And it was Raiden, so never mind. Raiden, though, starts a lap, currently on a 145.1, but will be looking to improve that. Here's someone who is finishing a lap. J-Lane in the Ferrari, then. The good thing about the wet conditions, even if you do go a bit wide, the momentum can sometimes help you out. Who knows? Across the line for J-Lane, and it's 13th currently. Wow, very polarising qualifying so far for the Ferrari team. 13th and 3rd for the Scuderia. One prancing horse is galloping along. The other one has been tranquilized. Lots of people on outlaps then. Let's see what Captain Wilco's up to. Is he daring to go for another lap? Well, I'll tell you what, he's planted the power on as if he is trying to do so. And the answer is no. He actually backs out of that lap time because here comes the championship leader. Championship leader, winner of last season's championship on Blackout on F1 23. So far, the only season of Blackout on F1 23 until this one rolled about. And with the purple sector 2, we are back to form. Surely. On board with him then. Down the straight he goes. Intermediates now being strapped on, of course. And that's why we're beginning to see the times tumble down. The rain actually getting lighter and lighter. Almost non-existent at this point. Thanassi, though, through the hairpin, finds the grip. And for a first lap on the intermediate tyres, he's been brave. Does fortune favour the brave, though? It's bold. It's beautiful. 1 minute 40.1. The first man on the intermediates. And probably Terziak was on the intermediates, but I just didn't look because I'm a fool. But at the end of the day, Thanassi has pole by just over half a second. My goodness me. Raiden up into P6 with his intermediates time so far. Incredible stuff. Dan Gilligan, though, is on the move again. He loves the wet conditions, can't get enough of them, and now he's looking to improve his standings even more. This man currently set in P3. A second 0.6 off, but with a purple sector 2, who knows what heights he could reach across the line, and it's only a 10th off Thanassi. So I'll tell you what, give yourself a pat on the back, my friend, because that is mighty impressive from you. The Alfa Romeo driver putting the AlphaTauri team under buckets of pressure, and they're going to need them because it's quite wet. The other AlphaTauri briefly takes 3rd, but slammed by 10 thousandths in that side-podded Mercedes, goes up to 3rd place. And now the times begin to tumble. Who else out on the track then? Well, the answer is an Alfa Romeo has gone very wide. And it's Raiden. Raiden's gone very wide, in fact. There he is. Actually, was on another lap, it looks like. Just overcooked it slightly, or was getting out of the way of the McLaren man. Speaking of which, here is that McLaren man, the only McLaren man in this session. Because I watched Guardian, I was talking about how tricky it was to get the traction down, and he sort of proved my point, to be honest with you. And by sort of, he did prove my point, in quite astronomical fashion. There is an internal combustion engine on these cars. I didn't mean for it to become an internally combusting engine. That wasn't part of the script, but Guardian made it so, unfortunately. Here's his teammate, though, Milo, purple sector 2. The time's really coming down as the track continues to improve. What can Milo do? And it's 3rd place. 3rd place for the McLaren driver. Well, then, things get very spicy now, don't they? Let's see what Dan Gilligan does, then. Does he come into the pits? The answer is yes, he does, and I find that very, very surprising indeed, all things considered. Thanassi comes into the pits as well, but with the track improving as much as it is, why were there bagpipes in the pit lane? Am I in Scotland? Am I in the right country? Is this actually Miami? Blink twice. Oh my god, Buck 57. Suddenly, pitting was probably not the right move. 1 minute 39.5. If you've just come into the pits, I apologise, but you made the wrong call, my friend. There's not enough time at all to get out there unless, for some unknown reason, you're on slicks. Right, Thanassi has 1 minute and 22 seconds to get around a lap that lasts for 1 minute and 40. Yeah, he's not going to get around. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Or disappoint Thanassi, mainly. Well, let's see what the times do, then. Maximus crosses the line, and he goes again for another lap. It's behind him in the Mercedes camp, though, where things could get interesting. Ivory crosses the line for P13, but the answer is he's going for a lap as well. It's Maximus, the first man to cross the line, potentially. It's not, it's Stark. Sorry, wrong guy. Stark crosses the line, and it's 1 minute 39.4. And now we see the times come down, and Stark could probably go for one more lap here. That's all he needs to do, just to get the confidence, and even if he doesn't, it's still a good enough lap. Thanassi's retired from the session, meanwhile, with 1 minute 40.1, and it could cost him and Daniel Gilligan valuable positions in this qualifying session, because look at all the cars that are going to start lap times with only a matter of seconds to go. And so the pain begins. Here comes Big Sam to try and compound their misery. P6, and that's quite alarming for Thanassi and Daniel Gilligan, because next up comes Buck 57 again. Across the line he goes. And it's not an improvement for the AlphaTauri driver. Stark still holds pole position. But remember, we have Ferrari drivers who are going purple, no less. Oh, yes. Now we cook, ladies and gentlemen. The prancing horse with a spring in its step. And it's looking to be an absolute leviathan of an end of a qualifying. A Titanic scrap in the torrential rain to begin with. Now turns into slightly less rain. But Maximus crosses the line. And it's pole by 6 tenths currently for the Ferrari man. But still it continues. Ivory across the line and he's invalidated his lap. He will not improve. Next up is J-Lane and the sister Ferrari. Can the dirty sister beat out the respectable... No, he can't. No, she can't. That's all I need to say. Anyway, Aston Martin's across the line. Stark will be first. Stark actually comes into the pits. That's the end of his qualifying. What can Captain Wilco do, though? It's only 4th place. Maximus pulls a lap out of nowhere. But Milo is still to come along. And he's 2nd place. It's not done. A purple 3rd sector, but still not good enough. But there's one more man who can do it. My throat hurts so much. But there's time for pole position to be taken at the death. Has he done it? I can't tell. No, it's P10. Oh, no. It might well have been an invalidated lap, and that might have been why. But even so... Oh my goodness me, I can breathe, I can relax. Ugh. Alright, well there you go then. Maximus takes pole position for Ferrari. I didn't think I'd be saying that at the end of this qualifying session, but I'm sure glad that I am. Maximus takes pole position for the Scuderia. Milo 2nd in the McLaren. Stark gets 3rd place with Buck 57 in 4th. Wilco in 5th. Well, an identical time to Buck 57. Oh my goodness me. Squaresman in 6th. Thanassi in 7th. J-Lane 8th. Daniel Gilligan in 9th. Terziak 10th. Big Sam 11th with Slam, Raiden, Ivory, Guardian and Dirkleton. Your final lot in qualifying. Oh my goodness. Well, wasn't that quite the end to Miami qualifying? Wow. I am absolutely flabbergasted. And I'll tell you what, I'm about to be more flabbergasted. Oh my God almighty. That right there is a hurricane. That is not rain anymore. That is a health hazard. Here we are then, in thunderstorming conditions. Jokingly, well, I say jokingly, before the race, King Didi said, enjoy the scorching Miami sun. In great jest, we now have pouring rain. How about that? Here we are, surveying the pit lane then. This will be the first ever wet race at the Miami Grand Prix. Of course, in real life, there's not been a single ounce of rain at all gracing the Miami Grand Prix track. But now we have it. And the marina, which is fake, actually gets some water. Who will wade through it best? 5 red lights. Lights out and away we go. And my God, they went out instantaneously. Full wet strapped on. Milo's got an absolutely wonderful launch. And through into the lead of the Grand Prix. Goes to McLaren, a slight bump on the rear end. Everyone trying to get through safely. Stark, meanwhile, finds an avenue and gets past Maximus. Great start from him. So, Milo leads, Maximus second. Third, Stark second. Thanassi, meanwhile, making moves on Captain Wilco, who's trying to go around the outside of him, but doesn't get it done. It's actually Terziak that's on the move, or trying to make moves done. It's all very, very circumspect and very tit-for-tat. Stark takes the lead of the race. Unbelievable. Through the left-hander. A lovely piece of opportunism to take and prize first place away from the McLaren man of Milo. But this battle is far from done. Slipstream being used from the Papaya Pro. Stark defending to the inside, making Milo go the long way round. But in the wet, of course, that is entirely possible. Not in this case, though. Stark stays ahead here. Oh, spin! Oh, no. Daniel Gilligan spins round again here. And there was a massive concertina effect of cars. Thanassi's at the back, meanwhile. And he's got front wing damage. I saw a massive gaggle of cars there. No idea what happened there. But suddenly, the driver's not keeping it together. And as a result, Thanassi with front wing damage, the championship leader, has already got his tail between his legs. Dan Gilligan, though, not with front wing damage, actually with a bit between his teeth. And with a bone on the line, he's really going after all the biscuits today. So, Stark leads. Milo P2, Maximus P3, P4 is Squares. Buck 57 in P5, Wilco 6th. Ivory's had an issue. The answer is he's gone absolutely straight on, but no... Oh, there is damage, actually. Never mind. Forget what I said. There is damage to the car, and there is a virtual safety car. Yay! J-Lane gets a severe collision penalty. Let's see why. Where was it? Don't know, mate. Ratio. So there you go then. Virtual safety car. Not a full safety car, blissfully. Otherwise, I'd cry. But here we are. Lap number 2 of this race. Pandemonium. Someone sent me a message on Xbox. Hello. My question of the day to you, whether you're watching the live stream or watching at home, is what platform do you prefer to play F1 on? Just a thought. Virtual safety car ends almost instantaneously, and away we go. And Milo gets a meteoric restart. How about that? Stark then on the back foot for a brief moment. The conditions absolutely torrential out here. My goodness me. Perhaps the rain will ease off, though. We don't know what the scope of the weather conditions are looking like at this point. Just full wet. That's all we're seeing at the moment. Through the Michael Mouse section, which looks nothing like Michael Rat. But anyway, Stark finding the grip, but Milo finding it more so. Half a second the gap. Maximus just beginning to lose touch, and Squares not too far behind Maximus in all of this. It's up to everyone now to make up for lost time, especially if your name's Thanassi, Dan Gilligan, and FTS Ivory. Meanwhile, Guardian's on the move. Down the straight, round the outside. Last of the late breakers. Yes, he is. And very nicely done for the McLaren man, although slightly too late. Here comes Big Sam again. On the switchback, potentially. Guardian does leave him room. A lot of respect between these two in racing, so kudos to them. In the end, it is Guardian that will win out. But Big Sam's not done yet. Potential for a move down the inside. Thinks about it, shows the nose, but nothing doing there. It's actually Milo that's taken the lead, and Maximus that's now looking very punchy against Stark. Goodness me. Through the first complex, the helicopter shot. I don't know how they managed to authorize the helicopter to actually do the photography and videography, considering it's a typhoon. But there you go, Stark. Oh my goodness, Stark, the amount of time he gains through that left-hander in that first complex is nigh on unbelievable. And now, he's the one that's on the offensive, although Milo's slightly getting away, and I'd be absolutely sure if either one, he's using battery, or two, he's got lower downforce. Both of which are entirely possible. J-Lane, meanwhile, is the one on the move. Past Big Sam, he goes. Both of them have penalties to their name, but that won't deter them from providing us with some cracking racing. The Prancing Horse now up into P10, with the other car, the sister car, in P3. Meanwhile, a 3-car train for the lead of this race. Milo has the lead, but for how much longer? A bit of a shimmy out of the corner. Now we ride on board with Stark, who is deploying a little bit of his overtake, but Milo does the same to counter it. Both of them actually on pretty identical batteries for the most part. So Stark just has to bide his time here. It's Buck 57 that's on the move, though. Past Squares in the Williams he goes. I personally prefer Skips. But down to P5, the Williams is demoted. Buck 57, who goes very hot into the hairpin. Oh my word. Almost having a scrape and a kiss with Barrier. But at the end of the day, does get P4 and on his merry way in that AlphaTauri car. Your leader then, Milo in P1, Stark P2, Maximus in P3. Stark loses a whole host of time there through that first little bit of corner, and then through the right-hander, he gains it all back again. It's amazing to see the ebbs and flows. Which part actually? Oh, right. Thanassi set a lap time that's 1.3 seconds quicker than anybody else. It's a joke. It's a disgrace. Lap number 4 of 20, though. There you go. That's how quick Thanassi can be. And he's proving it today. And he's on Xbox, just before all of you become superstitious. Not that that makes any difference. But at the end of the day, what we're here is the Community League. We're a Community League. Thanassi's just insanely quick. That's just what he does. Him, Timalele, and Tom. It's the triple T, the triple threat. It's just what they do. They have a great time while doing it. However, in this case, not having the greatest time. Down in 14th place. It's Milo, though, who's laughing and jumping for joy in P1. Stark in P2. Maximus in P3. Stark within a second once again through the Mickey Mouse section. Under traction. Both pretty even as things just begin to even out here. It's Wilco, actually, that could prove to be on the move. In the slipstream, deploying a lot of battery against the Williams driver. Goes to the outside, has a lot of straight line speed purchase, but we'll have to think about where he brakes. Has to be very careful about that. Try not to overcook it. He has overcooked it, and that gives the opportunity for the Williams driver to sail back past. So that's the ebbs and flows of the wet conditions at Miami. Brake too late, you get switchbacked. It's like the dry conditions, to be honest with you, but more so in the wet, it is pronunciated, accentuated even more. Wilco, though, still very much on the prowl and getting a much better exit out of Sector 1. Thanassi again with the fastest lap, but it's Wilco on the move that I'm willing to see, and he does do it indeed. The captain does commandeer his speedboat up into P5. Aston Martin now with 2 and 5 in this race, and Stark looks incredibly close. What on earth happened to Milo in that Sector 1? Finding no purchase whatsoever. Stark's closer than he's ever been, but Milo again in a straight line absolutely flies away. So that's the end of that for that straight. But then again, a bit wide here. Stark can just put him under pressure. Put him under that little bit of discomfort. Provide him with that extra pressure. Some say pressure makes diamonds. Others say it makes coal. And to them I say you're a pessimist. At the end of the day, we have 16 of the finest gems racing here in the Blackout Racing League. To be quite clear, this is a community league for all of you become keyboard warriors and go, oh, but this guy did this, and oh my goodness, you're the passion, and oh, I like this drive. Shut up, okay? Well, it's a community league. Get over it. Ratio. That's all I have to say. We're here to watch some great racing, and we're getting some great racing here in Miami, in the wet conditions. That's all it needs for it to be a good race, is wet conditions. So, Bernie, I know you're watching. Actually, no, you committed tax fraud, so stuff you. No one cares about you. 400 million in Singapore. Just randomly forgotten about. Sorry, I forgot my luggage. It has 100 million quid in it. I forgot to declare it, sorry. Like, what? Anyway. What can you do? Who should we actually ask? Liberty Media. That's who owns Formula 1. Liberty Media. You know, the sprinklers. Start them up. Look through this left-hander. How much time Stark gains? He must be running higher downforce. And oh, Milo with a slide out of the exit. No! So much consistency is needed in the wet conditions. And Milo gets a little bit of a tank slapper on the way out of the corner. And now has it all to do all over again. Again, though, look at the straight line speed. Unbelievable from the McLaren man. But bides his time, crucially here. Just biding it. Slowly but surely. But this is the part here where Stark can just begin to scamper away. And Milo drops down to a second behind. And goes wide again into the left-hander. Maximus is now smacking his lips for joy. Look at this. The gap has been eroded away completely. Stark is laughing. Look behind him. Look, Milo's in Uzbekistan. It's Maximus he now has to worry about. But again, I would suspect, and definitely am suspecting, that lower downforce is what Milo is running with. Because look at the time gain he has. 6/10 in a single straight. Stark clearly knowing that the wet weather was going to be about. And clearly going accordingly for it. Milo sliding out of that corner once again here. In the straights, he just catches up massively. But then he comes to the corner bits here. And this is where Stark knows that even if he doesn't do it to the best of his abilities, he still has the advantage. A little bit of a slide on, but he can catch that. And he's already 1.1 seconds the gap again. That's the, like I said, the ebbs and flows of the wet weather here in Miami. I'm curiously watching Thanassi and Dan Gilligan's progress meanwhile. Because while Guardian pits, and Guardian's actually retired from the session, what on earth happened there? Can only assume some kind of damage or some kind of Codemasters issue. Probably that. Milo, though, has backed himself up into not only Maximus, but Buck 57 now is right in the hunt. So Milo's low downfall setup can only save him for so long here, because Maximus and co are looking extremely punchy, and Maximus doesn't even need a second opportunity to inquire about that. Milo goes very wide indeed. Maximus tries to find the switchback to have that side-by-side action, but nothing doing there for the time being. The Ferrari driver has to settle for P3, and he has to be careful now, because look at that hungry, rabid dog snapping at his heels. Buck 57 looking for all the treats in the world. And he's certainly proving himself in these wet conditions. Look at the traction he's got. Oh my goodness me. Tell you what it is about the Bucks. They love to bring the fizz. They also love high downforce. But in this case, using the ERS, the battery being deployed, the Energizer Bunny is in a coma. Down the inside goes Buck 57. Maximus overcompensates in the braking zone. And that is all the invitation Buck 57 needs to claim P3 and a spot on the podium in this race now. Incredible stuff. Actually, Maximus into the pit lane. Not too sure why. Maybe because the rain is getting lighter and perhaps he's pulling the trigger. Nope, he just goes on to another set of wet tyres. I wouldn't be surprised if people... Oh, big slide from Stark. Oh my goodness me. Good catch though. Seen so many drivers deck it into the barriers. Luckily, Stark not one of them. The race leader carries on and through these sweeping complex of corners. Watch that time absolutely fly against Milo. 1.8 seconds. What was 1.1? Now it's 2 seconds to Milo. Just in those sets of corners. That's all he needed. And now, Buck 57 on the back of Milo has had the chance to gain back the battery. He lost on the straight, overtaking the Ferrari man. And now he has all the fun overtaking to do. Meanwhile, it's Dan Gilligan that has the overtaking to do. Switchbacking Dirk on the left-hander. That is bold. That is brave. I absolutely love it. It's a 10 out of 10 from me. Gets the move done. Executed beautifully. The Alfa Romeo driver now up into P12 in this race. Meanwhile, it's Thanassi I'm curious to watch because Maximus has come out onto the bits on a new set of wet tyres. Brand spanking new set. I expect most of the grid to try and do a zero shot because I imagine it would be possible. But, interestingly, Maximus has decided, no, actually, having that extra tread on the tyres is going to pay dividends, and he actually cuts the corner there, gets it all crossed up. It does actually, though, prove that the new tyres are running pretty well. One could say they are treading water. They are treading it very well. And the traction is much better because Thanassi now outside of a second on Maximus. And his teammate's just up ahead. Maximus' teammate, that is. So surely with some team orders at play, they can orchestrate this very well indeed. Meanwhile, Squares is up ahead of Slam because Slam is into the pit lane. So, Stark your leader then. Through the right-hander he goes. Keeps it very clean through there. Very nicely done. Milo has a good right-hander himself, actually. But once again, watch that time. This is the difference between the high downforce and the low downforce. What was 1.8 now is 2.3. Oh, wait, make that 2.5. Oh, my goodness. Make that on the exit. 2.4, 2.5 seconds. There you go. 2.6. 2.8. 2.8. You know what that means? We have a hungry shark here. Smells blood in the water. Driving like a shark because he's absolutely piling the pressure onto the McLaren man. It's like something out of Jaws. It's almost horrifying for him. Maximus, just as I thought, does get through on J-Lane, and that was very well orchestrated indeed from the Ferrari boys. And so the race continues. No, Milo's had a problem. No, what's happened? His front wing's off. No, the low downforce. I knew it was a gamble. I saw how much time he was gaining on the straights, but that's the price you pay, and it is a safety car. Right, it's a safety car. Okay. So, if safety car assist is on, Ivory's got a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. That's not ideal, but glossing over that. if safety car assist is on, if it is on, then hopefully it doesn't screw it up. But I would imagine after last race, they would see absolutely 0 points in using safety car assist, since it screwed absolutely everything up. The question is, am I wrong? The answer is no, I'm not. Wilco with a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, though. No. Stark, though, with a clean pit lane. Fantastic from the Aston Martin team and crew and driver for the lead that is insurmountable. The only man that will pass him on track is Terziak, but he hasn't pit yet. And on new wets, Stark comes out of the pits, and he's in P2. Maximus comes out of the pits, and who will be ahead? Oh my goodness, I think it was just Maximus. It might not have been, I'm unsure, but that was monumentally close. There was millimetric precision involved there. In terms of who came out ahead of who, Maximus pushed it to the absolute limit to get ahead of the AlphaTauri driver, and it pays dividends for him. 3rd place for the Ferrari driver. Buck 57 settling for 4th. Milo, despite the front wing damage, has come into the pits, got it replaced, put the wet tyres on his car, and is now in P7. With all the new parts he could ever wish for. My question is then, for those of you that are on the chat and are able to answer, do we know if safety car assist is on? I would assume no. I certainly hope no, because it screwed over a lot of people last race. So I would imagine that here it has not been implemented, although I could be wrong. So, lap number 10, the fulcrum point of this race. We have Terziak leading on the wet tyres, because that's the only tyre you should be on, or you're a fool. Terziak in first, Stark in second. Feels like deja vu now. Terziak and Stark at the forefront. Maximus in third. Buck 57 in fourth. Captain Wilco in fifth, but with a penalty to his name. Squares in sixth. Milo in seventh. Slam in eighth. Thanassi in ninth. J-Lane in 10th for Ferrari. That rounds out your top 10, and it's Big Sam, Dan Gilligan, Dirkleton, Raiden, and Ivory to complete your grid lineup. Technically, it's race order. That's the phrase I meant. Not grid order, because it's not qualifying, stupid. Well then, what can we say about Miami? It's been interesting, certainly, for probably all the wrong reasons. So far, given us races with no characteristics. 2022, there was only really one memorable moment for me. And that was Lando Norris having an accident. That was it. That was the only thing I remember from that race, and it was a crash. So that's not ideal. I sound like a Drive to Survive fan now. But 2023 should be more exciting, right? No, it wasn't that much more exciting. It was a race, though, where Verstappen asserted his dominance against his teammate Sergio Perez, who, after Baku, rather stupidly, said he could win the championship. To which I horrendously facepalmed, because why on earth would you say that? Just why would you say that? It's such a bad omen to say you're in championship contention after 4 races, and then to drop a stinker in Miami. If he hadn't had said that and just kept his head on, and just carried on with his merry way, then I think we wouldn't be having this conversation, and he'd actually be doing very well. But in a way, he put this pressure on himself. Also, Red Bull are a bunch of assholes, so that's probably why. Safety car in this lap. No safety car assist. Thank Jesus Christ and Harry Krishna and all the other deities. Terziak will lead us away then. Terziak, of course, with full control in terms of when he pulls the trigger, when he stomps on the loud pedal. Safety car isn't in yet, though, so he has to back the pack right up and wait for that safety car to come in. Has to be so careful. But he stomps on it now. Safety car is in, and we go racing again in Miami. And it's a great restart from Stark. Straight away, looking for an avenue. In the end, no, nothing doing there currently, although could send Terziak wide and open the door up for him. Checking behind as well for many position changes, if there are any. But the higher tread on Stark's wet tyres is going to put him in a great position. Great traction, much more superior traction, and Stark leads the Miami Grand Prix once again in this race. Fantastic stuff. Straight away proving that the new rubber bites into the very greasy bitumen much better. Maximus with a switching move down the inside on his new wet tyres, and now it's Buck 57 that will keep Terziak for company here. It's all going to get very choppy. Wilco now on the move as Buck 57 gets backed up behind the Alpine, and he gets through. And now it's his turn, but Buck 57 not done yet. Oh my gosh. On the move he goes, and he's straight past once again, braking as late as he dares. Terziak goes wide though. Here comes Buck 57. Contact made between the two of them. Surely he'll hang this round the outside, and he's run rings around him. Surely he has to let this one go side by side into the Mickey Mouse section. You don't want to do that, let me tell you. Luckily he doesn't do that, and we carry on our merry way. El Capitan next then. Next up on the to-gobble list is Terziak, and from absolutely downtown. That is brave, that is bold, that is a lot of curb. Contact made. Wilco's tried to make the move stick, but Squares and Thanassi get through, and so does Slam. Opportunism at every which way. So many drivers swarm Captain Wilco all at once, and the man who steered his ship into P4 is now going to be under attack from the Alfa Romeo driver, and through goes Daniel Gilligan, although the switchback from Wilco, contact made there. That's getting very grisly, and now Terziak's got real problems. Dan Gilligan now up into P8 in this race. Incredible stuff. And so we turn our attention then to the battles. Oh god, Terziak's not done with his descent into the doldrums. Through goes Captain Wilco. J-Lane will be next, I'm absolutely sure of that. It's just a matter of time, it really is, as through Milo's having a big old scrap with Dan Gilligan. Using the slipstream, it's the Alfa Romeo driver, the man who was right at the back with damage on lap number 1, looking to get past Milo, but Milo with such low downforce, all the voice needs to do is just be the tyre whisperer. Coax them into life, bide his time, because Milo is going to start really struggling in the corners. Tell you who isn't struggling, nope, Stark. 3 seconds is the gap already. Incredible from the Aston Martin driver, and he's continuing to absolutely fly. Squares has got a corner cutting penalty. I don't believe it. That's what happens when you can only make turns in right angles. Stark, your leader then. Maximus P2. Buck 57 in hot pursuit, though. Using the slipstream. Trying to find an avenue. Not going to try and be as adventurous as Captain Wilco. And for good reason, because that curb there really unsettled the car. Swarmed by about 15 cars at once. That was quite the sight to see, I'll be honest with you. Gap now 3.3 seconds. Thanassi, though, still coming in with the fastest laps of the race, despite everything. And keeping a watchful eye on proceedings here. On the battle up ahead, despite being on older rubber, significantly older rubber for that matter. How much older rubber? Let's find out. The answer is... Actually, Dirk's gone on to inters. That's interesting. I'd be intrigued to see what he does on the inters. Don't know how heavy it's raining. The answer is it's still quite heavy, so perhaps not the right decision to make there, my friend. The answer is Thanassi's tyres, they're not that old, because he also pit under the safety car. Very cleverly. So well done him. Now a 5-second gap between Stark and Maximus. They are 3 abreast down the straight. They definitely are 3 abreast now. Oh, this can only end in absolute tears. You think it would. The Alpha Tauris are now side by side with one another. On board with Buck 57. Who's going to come out on top? Thanassi breaks a bit too late. Buck 57 absolutely rinses his teammate into the Mickey Mouse section. Wonderful piece of racecraft between the Alpha Tauri boys, especially from Buck 57. Dan Gilligan is so close to getting Milo as well. Oh my goodness me. Almost a move into the Mickey Mouse section. Trying to switch back, finding an avenue every this way and that way. Milo is losing time. Hand over fist though. That lack of downforce is going to start hurting him big time. You can see he doesn't have to use ERS because in a straight line he's a weapon unleashed. But in the corners, he's very much like Cheems. And if you know, you know. Thanassi does get through on Buck 57 though. That was short-lived, wasn't it? But for Stark, crucially, he has a 4.8 second buffer to the AlphaTauri driver in P2. So with 6 tours of the Miami Grand Prix still to go, who on earth is going to come out on top in a wet and wild Miami Grand Prix? That's the question. And I can confirm, as always, I'll have the answers very soon. Meanwhile, I'm watching Dirk very curiously here, and it's because, actually, until that first corner where he went astronomically wide, so I apologise for saying anything, but crucially, for him, he's actually keeping up with the wet weather runners. So that's pretty good going, you know? Meanwhile, Squares is on the move. Hello there. Up into P4. So what on earth's happened with Maximus? He seems to have no pace. He's absolutely dropped anchor in these wet conditions. Dearie me, what on earth is going on there? Slams the one on the move, though. Round the outside, the Mercedes sprouted side pods, and it's going to sprout something else. And the answer is even more points for the Brackley-based team. Up into P4, one Mercedes. The other Mercedes down in P15 currently. A very polarising race for the Silver Arrows, who are black. Coming up to the end of lap number 15, though. Stark with good traction out of the Mickey Mouse section means Thanassi is only caught up by 6/10 on this lap. Meanwhile, yellow flag in Sector 2. What on earth has gone on there? I have no idea. I would try and watch, but this is the worst camera of all time. This shows me nothing. I think it was Dirk that caused the yellow flag. It must have been, because he's now 4 seconds behind. But luckily for him, no damage, and off he continues. So, Stark P1, Thanassi P2, Buck 57 in 3rd, Slam in 4th, Squares in 5th, and looking to try and regain P4 in this race. He's not done yet, could go for a move to the inside, thinks about it, but nothing doing there currently. Maximus in 6th, Dan Gilligan has overtaken Milo up into P7, Milo in 8th, Wilco in 9th, and J-Lane in 10th. Again, the ebbs and flows. I know it's not the most exciting racing you could ever ask for, but the ebbs and flows of Miami are so interesting. You can see where Stark's gaining time, taking a bit more speed into some corners. Thanassi gains a bit more time by being a bit more conservative into some other corners. He's getting quite a bit of time. He's using actually quite a hefty amount of battery, it looks like, because he's almost got none left. 3.4 seconds. Right, well, Thanassi is just mocking it then, because he must have a lower downforce setup as well. Only this time, he's managing to do Moses' work with it, unbelievably. Into the Mickey Mouse section. Fly through it as much as possible. Stark flew through it quicker, though. Gains a couple of attempts. Thanassi on the exit, though. Gains a couple of attempts in return. Again, dumping the battery. I can see it on the steering wheel just a little bit. And perhaps it's just that offset of speed. That's what's making Thanassi so much quicker. Very interesting stuff then. 4 tours to go. Stark still holds the lead, but that gap is coming down thick and fast. Buck 57 holding down P3 brilliantly. It's Maximus and Dan Gilligan downwards that are putting the pressure on Mr. Squares in the Williams, though. Although Maximus slowly dropping out of the 1 second window and the real striking range. So he might be the one that has to cope with the pressure from behind. Never mind, he doesn't have to cope with it because he's buckled. He's down to P9 with a slight half spin. Keeps it all together. But Dan Gilligan now up to P6. 3.3 seconds the gap. I have no idea what happened. He's sliding about massively though. And Milo is going to say thank you very much, sunshine. Up into P6 I go. Dan Gilligan though will respond saying, oh, you've slid off. I'm having none of it. But oh, wow! There goes Wilco onto the outside. It looked to be 3 wide. It is 3 wide. That's horrendous. But Dan Gilligan somehow comes out the other side with 6th place and no egg on his face. Miller, though, not done yet. Lower downforce, and you know what the game is. And oh my god, he's absolutely launched it. He's like a torpedo out there. An absolute submarine. Through he goes. Wilco sends it past J-Lane in the Ferrari, who's managed to find a psychological boost out of nowhere from these three up ahead fighting. Wilco does manage to maintain P8 for the moment. Thanassi, though, has made a mistake somewhere, and he must have done, because the gap now is 4.1 seconds. So then, that's very interesting news. Terziak now with a 3-second time penalty. Looks like he's going for the 0 stop, and unfortunately for him, new tyres would have been the way to go. Late braking for Thanassi was not the way to go for him either. He's lost another 4 attempts. Stark, all he needs to do is just keep it consistent. The gap now back up to 4.4 seconds. Thanassi making mistake after mistake. My goodness me. Suddenly, Stark has the opportunity of, well, this evening, to be honest with you. But he will not turn his nose up at that whatsoever. He's absolutely loved the wet conditions all day. He took the lead from Milo and then never looked back once he'd broken out of that window. And now against Thanassi, he's coping with that as well. Here comes Dan Gilligan, though. Again, through Sector 1. These two just can't get rid of each other. Milo goes round the outside, momentum in his favour. Dan Gilligan still on the outside and will remain there. Uses the momentum, has the inside for the right-hander, keeps it going. Milo's still there, but not for long, as here comes Wilco. Round the outside, the two side by side. It means Dan Gilligan can just somewhat escape. Wilco, though, with the traction. But remember, Milo has that low downforce setup, has the better straight line speed, and he's going to absolutely rocket past Captain Wilco, as does J-Lane, out of nowhere in the Ferrari. Wonderful stuff. Dan Gilligan even gets demoted just because of the straight line speed of Milo. Milo can't get it stopped. It's because J-Lane's on the inside. Out of nowhere, turns to 3 wide. Absolute pandemonium here. Yellow flag down behind, and J-Lane's had a spin. No, I don't believe it. Such fine battling. My voice is going. This is unbelievable stuff. Tit for tat racing, no quarter left on the table, no stone unturned out here in Miami. And that's the kind of racing that has been made a byproduct from it. It's unbelievable, and I'm loving every single second of it. Stark, 2 laps to go, the gap at 4.5 seconds. And all he needs to do is just bring it home. That's all he needs to do. He literally just needs to bring it home. Unbelievable. Maximus, though, after all of the trouble he went through earlier, now ahead of Dan Gilligan once again. So Dan Gilligan, or shall I say just Dan? I keep saying their full names. What am I doing? Dan the man hasn't been the man. He's found himself in a bad position. But Terziak, why is Terziak here? What's going on? The no-stopper out of nowhere. Only 6 tenths behind. Dan Gilligan sliding about. Terziak slides about more. As a result, can't find the momentum just yet, but be on the lookout for him. We know he's consistent. We've seen how quick he is all the time, even on tyres that are significantly more goosed. There is still an opportunity yet for him in this race. Whew, right. Things settle down. It's actually Dirk that's on the move on the intermediates. My God. Okay. Suddenly things get interesting. Maybe the intermediates are firing up. However, Wilco, not done yet. It's not leaving that query unanswered. He's getting his fax machine out. That sounds really bad. Put it away, mate. Just put it away. And he has put it away because he's not even bothered trying to fight that one. So I'm actually watching Dirk just to see if he makes a last lap and a bit charged towards first place. It's actually this man I'm super impressed with. I am super impressed with. On pretty much the same age tyres as the championship leader behind him. The man who has been imperious. The man who has looked to be absolutely invincible every single time he's been on a racetrack in Blackout. And Stark has had all the answers. Looked for a brief moment, Thanassi would find that electric pace, and Stark now is the one who has had the answer to all his queries, answered all of the puzzles, all of the crosswords crossed out. This man means business, and for Aston Martin, he does it this season. He did it last season for Ferrari. He just has 2 sectors to go before he can call himself a Blackout racing winner in Season 2. Meanwhile, it's so close between Maximus and Dan Gilligan. I'm watching anxiously Wilco and Derek Dirkleton fighting behind. Meanwhile, intermediates versus the wet tyres. It's going hammer and tong meanwhile. My voice is breaking, but Dan Gilligan's pressure, he's not breaking under it, I'll tell you that much. Up into P7. It would have been P7 anyway, as Maximus has a penalty. but it's the least he deserves after what would have been a great qualifying had he stayed out. And not only that, first lap kerfuffles, slightly scuppering his chances, was not the ideal scenario. But at the end of the day, he has done a actually very, very good recovery indeed. Makes his way up to P7, and that is really all you can ask for considering how his race started and all the chaos he's been through. He's managed to keep his nose clean, no front wings off of the car since the start, and he's been consistent. But here's the man of the moment. I haven't forgotten about him, don't you worry. An absolutely unprecedented effort. He had all the answers for the championship leader. Stark's the invincible man in Miami. He wins the Miami Grand Prix. Fantastic from the Aston Martin driver. He did it with Ferrari. He does it with Aston Martin. He did it in Season 1. Stark is a Season 2 Blackout Racing winner on F1 23. Thanassi looked like he had meteoric pace, but it could only provide so much as a whiff of pressure to Stark. In the end, his charge was cooled like a comet, and so he had to settle for P2, but AlphaTauri will not complain. They can still be extremely happy with that result. P2 and P3 for Buck 57. Unbelievable stuff from him. Slamming P4 for Mercedes. I must say, gone very much under the radar this race. Unbelievable stuff from him. Kept it all together. Did what he needed to do. And while others behind him were fighting, he did his own thing. And that's all he needed to do. Squares in P5. Milo takes 6th. Dan Gilligan does hold on to P7 ahead of Maximus. Terziak, despite making 0 stops, makes his way into P8. Well, it's actually P9, but Dan Gilligan's retired and there's been a skill issue with the leaderboard. So there you go. It's Big Sam in 10th, J-Lane 11th, Dirkleton 12th, Raiden 13th, Wilco 14th, and clicking up the final championship point. Here he is. Ivory crosses the line, and that will do it. That will do it here in Miami. They say fairy tales are written, and today one man has written the script in his own way, in the best way possible for him. Stark, after all of the disgruntlement after Australia for all the right reasons, he won this race for all the right reasons. Wonderful pace, wonderful racecraft, did what he needed to do. Consistency was key, and he never put a foot wrong. Lifts the trophy up to the heavens, and he is on top in Miami. And that will do his championship standings a world of good indeed. Still, though, a strong result from Thanassi in this race and from Buck 57. AlphaTauri, on the whole, done an absolute number this race. 2 and 3 for the Italian-based team. Fantastic stuff. What a race that was. The wet conditions, I'll tell you what, Liberty Media, if you're watching, get the sprinklers on. That's all I'm saying. Stark wins the Miami Grand Prix by 5.5 seconds. Thanassi, though, takes P2 and fastest lap. Buck 57 P3, Slam P4, Squares in P5, Milo 6th, Maximus 7th, Terziak in 9th because Dan Gilligan was actually 7th, so Maximus 8th, Terziak 9th, Big Sam in 10th, with J-Lane, Dirkleton, Raiden, Wilco and Ivory rounding out the point scorers. The only non-finisher was Guardian, who retired in the pit lane. Well, there you go. My brother says, got to sleep. Glad I got to catch all the races. Or 1.5. Well, you're right. It was 1.5. Get a good sleep, my friend. I hope you have a wonderful day tomorrow. And we will chat soon. Do not worry. Well, there you have it. There you have it. The Miami Grand Prix. What a spectacle. And I'll tell you what. In the future, all Miami races should be in the wet. In contrast, Raiden says, don't ever race Miami wet. So, we have a very, very, very polarizing scale of opinion here on Blackout. Yeah, I'd agree with Miami wet. I maybe... Yes. You know what? I don't blame you, though. There you go. After all the heartbreak at the Australian Grand Prix, after the F1 grid's heads were turned firmly upside down, well, in Miami, They can hold their heads high now. They can hold their heads high. Stark with his first win of Season 2 on F1 23 in Blackout. Fantastic drive. Absolutely imperious. Almost untouchable. Other than a brief skirmish with Milo. A few battles here and there at the beginning of the race. He never put a foot wrong and never, ever looked back. Kudos to AlphaTauri. Great races from them. Kudos to Slam as well, who also had a great race. And I tell you what, that was quite something. I'm very sorry, I had to sniff. I'm still kind of recovering from a cold. There's been like a really long cold going around, or is it just me? I swear there's like been just the longest cold ever going around for a lot of people. Unfortunately, I am one of them. Which, if you're a commentator, is not great. I've had it too, just about gone. Yeah, no, I'm genuinely, I'm on the come down from mine. 2 weeks ago, let me just say, I'm glad it started 2 weeks ago, because the week before that, I've had it for like 3 weeks now. Oh god, I've had it for 3 weeks. Jesus Christ. 3 weeks ago, my voice was horrible. Like, genuinely horrible. And my breathing wasn't great either, which is not ideal. Might have been COVID, actually. Oops. Oh, well. What can you do? The game's the game, I suppose. But I don't think it was actually... I don't think it was COVID. I genuinely just had really bad cold symptoms, which is frustrating. But yeah, massive long colds going on. I'm pretty much mostly recovered. GG. Thanks for streaming the race. No problem, mate. No problem. An absolute pleasure as always. I hope you all enjoyed the commentary. And I hope you all do enjoy the commentary when you come to watch this later. So if you are watching this later, hi! It's me. So there you go. My goodness me. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed that. Other than the Australian skill issues from Codemasters. You're very welcome, Stark. Like I say, it's a pleasure as always. Thank you to Blackout while I'm here. While I'm saying all of the thank yous and your welcomes. All the pleasantries. Thank you to Blackout for allowing me to stream and commentate this racing series. As always, I would rather nothing else be my Monday evening. And by that, I mean my Monday evening is pretty damn perfect commentating over this. And I'm very glad that you all enjoy it. So thank you. I do appreciate that. The question is, what will happen to Australia in the future of Blackout? Well, perhaps we do it at a later date. Or perhaps we do a Monaco and never do it for the rest of the series, considering... I don't know what I'd say. I would have liked to have seen a little sprint race. A little bit of pizzazz. But there you go. I better check just to make sure that they, you know, they don't actually, do that. The answer is they haven't. So that's good news for me. So I can rest easy now. We're going to race it upside down. You know what? Actually, that is a great idea. It's a great idea for any YouTuber, to be honest with you. F1 23, but I raced at Australia and actually played upside down. You know what? All of you, either, well, you have two options here. You either turn your monitors upside down and don't change, or actually just turn the orientation of your screens upside down. Or you literally go upside down, let the blood all go to your head and be a proper Australian. That's the only two ways you can do it. Which one are you picking? Me, personally, it would have to be the second one. I want to be properly resonating with my Australian self. And really, that's the only way I feel like I can. With the blood in my scalp. Right. Well then. I've forgotten they're both 35% races, so it's just so much shorter. These streams used to be 3 hours. And yet somehow, with two 35% races, my voice is more goosed than last season. Which is quite unbelievable, really, all things considered. So, there you have it. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I will now sign off. 6 of you here. I love and appreciate you all. Thank you very much for watching Blackout on F1 23. I hope you all sincerely enjoyed. As always, we are here on Mondays. The time, 8 o'clock in the evening, British time. And by British time, is it, have the clocks moved yet? Is it still BST? We should know, it's autumn, really, so I don't know. But anyway. The point is, that's when we do it. So you can convert it, because I can't be bothered. That's all I'm going to say. What a spectacle of races, though, when it came down to it. But we'll ignore Australia, because that was a mess. Miami, though, I had a lovely time. I had an absolutely lovely time. That was some absolute quality. And I wouldn't have it any other way. So, next week. Where are we next week? Just to give you a little zesty look into what we're doing. The answer is... we are doing Texas and Imola. That's where we are at. And of course, Texas, a sprint weekend. Imola, not a sprint weekend, but even so, it will still be very, very saucy to watch indeed. Saucy San Marino, as it were. That's where we're heading next week. Only final thing for me to say is that I post these regularly on YouTube. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you look on a playlist called Commentary, all of the Blackout streams I have ever done are on there. So if you feel like, oh, why is it not on Twitch anymore? Why can't I now watch it? Well, go on my YouTube channel and you can watch every single one of them that I have ever done. YouTube name is KarlsCars, which is what used to be my Twitch channel name, but I changed it to Karl Poranic. Just a bit of personalization thing, you know? But there you go. Playlist is on there if you want to go and find it. That's the long and the short of it. So, I will now end it. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. I have been able to do both races this week with no hiccups, and I'm very, very grateful for that indeed. I'm extremely grateful, actually. So once again, Blackout, thank you for letting me commentate, and thank you for giving me some absolutely ravenous racing to feast upon with my eyes. It was proper eye candy, especially in Miami, and I hope for much the same next week as we head to Texas for a sprint weekend, and then to Imola for the second event of the evening. Like I said, don't miss Blackout. It's on Mondays at 8 in the evening British time. You convert it because I can't be bothered. Thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, or whenever you're watching this. And until next time, I will see you next time. Bye!